Alta, alta es la luna cuando empieza a esclarecer. Y yo hermosa y sin ventura nunca llegué a nacer. Y yo hermosa y sin ventura nunca llegué a nacer. Mis ojos me se hincharon de tanto mirar la mar. Vapóricos van y vienen, letra para mí no hay. Vapóricos van y vienen, letra para mí no hay. Hermoso, dos taras tiene con él, la una que arrollada dos, la otra que echa sheshbesh, la una que arrollada dos, la otra que echa sheshbesh. Mi querido es alto y vano y una vara de expander. Mi madre hizo colada, lo metió a detener. Mi madre hizo colada, lo metió a detener. Na, 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 na.
שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יקקה וירח בלילה, השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך, הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל, השם שומרך, השם צילך.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom, and welcome to this week's World Alliance of Qara'im Torah study. I am Hakham Melech ben Yaakov of the World Alliance of Qara'im. Maybe I should get rid of this background again. I keep on having problems with the stupid background. Hold on a second here. Let's try this. Blur. Is that a little bit better? No, it still acts weird. I don't know. I always have problems with this thing. What about this one? No, I still get that weird background. Hold on. I think I know why. 1 second. Let's do this. 1 second. Okay. Maybe that's going to be a little bit better. I don't know. We'll see. Any rate, nah, I don't like that either. It's just weird. Okay, we'll go with that. Nah, that's weird too. They have to work on their background thingy. Brick wall? Nah. This? We'll go with that. All right, fine. Okay, anywho. So welcome to this week's study. If you're trying to, well, we hear the elevator. The elevator, right. Right, yeah, exactly. Right, last week I was doing it in a place where there was people walking in and out of an elevator. No, there's no elevator in this S-hole that I'm staying in. Definitely not. Okay, anywho, so let me say a couple of things. So I've been now in Israel, let's see, I arrived on June 5th. It's now July 20th, so let's call it 1.5 months or so. And I am really sorry to report that nobody in this country seems to be able to get along with each other. It's really, I got to change this stupid thing. Hold on a second here. Oh my God. Jeez. How do I do this? Brand. No, settings. God, it's so annoying. Virtual background. All right, let's try this. Maybe you can handle that one a little bit better. I don't know. All right, good enough. Okay, I'm really sorry to report. No, that one's weird too. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. I should have done this before I got on. All right, we'll just go back to the usual one. There we go. That nobody in this country is able to get along with each other. People that I thought were my friends seem to be not my friends. They seem to be, I've had conflicts with people that I've known for a while that I thought were my friends, and I just find myself in conflict with them. I find people in conflict with everyone else here. Nobody seems to be able to give anyone else a break. Nobody seems to be able to get along with anybody else. And I think the state of affairs is pretty sad in this country. I don't think it bodes well for our time. Yeah, exactly. I agree with you, Marianne. I don't think it bodes well for our future here in Israel. And I'm sorry to say this, but I think I understand now why things like what happened on October 7th happened. I mean, Yahweh must look down at us from the heavens and say, look at the way these people are treating each other. You know, they need a smack. And that certainly, don't misunderstand me, that doesn't mean that the people who died on October 7th or who were injured or kidnapped, etc., it doesn't mean that they deserve it. That's not the way it works. When Yahweh strikes out, he strikes out at the entire nation. One of the horrible things is that the innocent as well as the guilty are all punished as one often, right? It's the same with the Holocaust. I think as a nation, we probably deserve the Holocaust. If it's any indication, what I see in Israel, the way people treat each other, if it's any indication, which I know it is, of the way Jews treated each other back in Europe, in the 1900s, then I'm sorry to say, but I'm not surprised that the Holocaust came upon us. And again, that doesn't mean that everyone who died in the Holocaust deserved it. there might have been some very, very righteous people. Yahweh has his own cheshbonot, his own reasons for doing things. Maybe it was just someone's time, and he used the Holocaust as a way to take them back. But as a nation, I'm quite sure that we probably deserved. I'm quite sure that we got what we deserved. Let me just put it straight out there. It's just unbelievable the way I see people treat each other here. People have no patience for each other. They can be kind to each other, but they seem more interested in figuring out how they can screw each other over. They seem more interested in figuring out, how they can take advantage and not be taken advantage of at the same time. And something is really wrong in this place. No, we don't have good politicians at all. I'm sorry to tell you, we have absolutely horrible politicians. They're part of the problem, and they're representative of the nation. So I don't know. I think there have to be some major, major, major changes here. There are going to be some major changes here. Everyone feels it. Everyone feels that the story that happened on October 7th is not the end, but kind of the beginning. I know some people have left the country permanently or have left the country temporarily because they just needed to get the heck away from this place for a while. And yeah, it's just kind of sad what I see here. It's like we Jews we just do not know how to live in peace with each other, and we don't know how to treat each other nicely. We don't know how to treat anybody nicely, quite frankly, a lot of the time, which is why I think we go into these various nations and we're welcomed in with open arms. Yes, we bring a lot of economic prosperity, we bring a lot of social advancement, which is not always a good thing. Look at what liberal Jews did in the United States. We bring a lot of technological advancement, medical advancements, etc. But at a certain point, we just become such pains in the ass. We just completely overstay our welcome. We try to fundamentally change the societies we are guests in because we have no conception of the Torah, or even if we have a conception of the Torah, we don't perceive it correctly. We don't realize that first and foremost, it's about how you treat your fellow man, which includes Jews and includes non-Jews. And we basically we become a stink, to quote Exodus chapter 3 or 4. We become a stink in the nose of the host country, and they eventually say, "This is enough. We've had enough of these people. Just get them the hell out of here." It doesn't always end in a Holocaust. It can end in expulsions, as it did in 1492 in Spain. It can end as it did in now I have to ask my British friends, 12 something or other in Britain, and the Jews were invited back in 1500. That's what my friend just told me. My British friend just told me not too long ago. And it's just sad. We just really do not know how to behave. We are a stiff-necked and stubborn people, and we just keep on getting smacked by God again and again and again. And it just seems like we just are incapable of learning our lessons. I have to say that my major goal in being here in Israel is to start a Karaite community. And the two people that I think I relied on the most, and I will not mention their names, and some of you know who I'm talking about, or know more or less who I'm talking about. One couple up north, but then there's another friend that I've had for many years down here in the Jerusalem area. Again, I will not mention the names, who I really relied on to be like close friends, to start a community with, and to rely on them and have them rely on me, and to almost be like an extended family. They've really kind of disappointed me, to tell you the honest truth. And I've gotten into conflicts with both of them, with my friend down here in the Jerusalem area. Again, it shall remain nameless. Those of you who are in contact with me on a daily basis know who I'm talking about, know what the issue is. But here's someone I had a friend for many years, and then I ended up in conflict with this person, and I can't for the life of me figure out what I did. This person keeps on telling me what I did, and maybe there's some truth to it, but it's also, on the other hand, highly exaggerated. And up in the north, this other couple that I had become close to, but really had only met once, I find myself now in conflict with them, and it's just a shame. I don't know how we as Karaites, let alone we as Jews, are going to be able to set up any viable community, because everyone just seems to be at each other's throats. Everyone seems to be arguing with each other, fighting with each other. And, my take is, when I was younger, I used to be very harif, as they say in Hebrew. I used to be, quick to, quick draw, quick to go into the fight. But I'm not anymore, because I really learned that you have to give people latitude. You have to let them be who they are, and you have to take a step back and allow them to be who they are, even if you disagree with them. Yes, there are red lines. For sure, there are red lines. And I always give the example that, yeah, I agree. Conflict is inevitable. Our inability to reconcile after conflict and settle the issues holds us back, but not a new problem. I suppose you're right, Paul. Maybe I'm just taking it a bit too much to heart, because I expected a little bit more. But sure, there are red lines, and the example I always give is, if someone, let's say in the community, said, "Oh, let's go worship a foreign god," then that is obviously a red line. Okay, if somebody was violent, if somebody, I won't even use examples, but killed someone else in the community, then that also, obviously, things like that are red lines. But other than that, I really feel that we have to just let people express their ideas, let people be who they are, let people, have follow their own journey, make their mistakes like we all do, including myself. How are we going to learn if we don't make our mistakes? You know how many times I have over the years come to conclusions, oh wow, I saw something in the Torah this way, but this is wrong. Now I see it this way. Or just in life. I mean, this is the only way we grow, and this is the only way that we are able to live together, is if we give each other a certain latitude, allow differences of opinion without flying off the handle at them, and and uh and and just give a certain, dan lekafschut, as they say in Hebrew. Give, just try to see the good side rather in people, and in their actions, rather than the bad side. Quit talking it to Q-tip. Quit taking it personally. Right, you're right. I thank you, Marianne. And Marianne and I speak on almost a daily basis. She's become one of my best friends, and I cannot tell you how much I appreciate her friendship, and I think the feeling is mutual. But yeah, it's just disappointing. So I'm forging ahead. I'm gonna forge ahead and attempt to set up a community. I'm going to attempt to set it up on the basis of mutual respect for everybody, realizing that we have differences in opinion, that this is actually the basic Karaite motto, right? Search well in the scriptures and do not rely on my opinion. It is if free speech is ingrained into, let's say, the culture, or into the unwritten law and the written law of the United States of America, part of the culture, especially the right-wing libertarian culture, then it was ingrained into Karaism over 1,000 years ago. The basic Karaite motto is that none of us know exactly what the right thing is, and therefore we have to allow the expression of a variety of opinions. It's as simple as that. And you're right about that, Paul. You're right. That's true. I agree with you on that. So I'm going to forge ahead, and I'm going to go try to get past this. I'm going to, as Paul said, attempt to reconcile with these people that I've had conflicts with, and and the plan is still to set up a Karaite community. But I just think that we have to give each other a bit more latitude, to express opinions, right or wrong, and to, if we ever hope to live together in a community, then just to be able to put up with each other without it constantly turning into conflict. So that being said, that's that part of the thingy. Okay. That's all I have to say. But it has not been, I spent the last 4 years in Portugal, and people are very accommodating there. They but here everyone just argues with everybody, And I just give the example of in Portugal, if I had a conflict, or a situation here where I was driving on the road. I've lived in Israel for many years. Just coming back, I guess I forgot how difficult it can be at times. and so I was driving in a traffic circle, and I wasn't sure which way I needed to go. Did I need to get off this current exit, or did I need to get off the next turn off from the traffic circle? And I hesitated. I must have hesitated, I think, for under 5 seconds. And immediately, somebody started honking me. I mean, less than 1 or 2 seconds later, somebody started honking me. I'm like, what the heck? And I compare it to Portugal, where I lived for the past 4 years. That never would have happened in Portugal. Yes, there comes a time where even the Portuguese will honk at you, and they could be a jerks on the road sometimes. They have a if anyone's ever been to Portugal, they have every country has its own driving culture. And the one thing that always annoyed me in Portugal is if they want to pass you, they come up right behind you, like tailgate you, going very fast, and sometimes flash the lights. And I hate that. But other than that, Portuguese drivers are very considerate for the most part and patient. And here in Israel, they just have absolutely no patience. Like I stopped for 1 second just to decide, do I need to take this turn or not take this turn? And already the person behind me is honking me, and that just pissed me off. Okay, and it just seems that people don't have any patience for each other here. They don't have any consideration for each other. They don't have any they don't they they don't they treat each other like crap. Quite frankly, that really is the truth in many, many different ways. And it's sad, and it's going to cause many more October 7th at a much more serious October 7th. Because if we don't get along with each other, and if we don't even have the ability to treat each other in a decent manner, then there's no hope for this nation, at least not in the short term. So all of that being said, oh yeah, and then I asked a friend, I said, listen, what do you think? I mean, I stopped at the traffic circle, and this is one of the friends that I had the conflict with. I stopped at the traffic circle for, I'd say under 5 seconds. I wasn't sure which direction to go in. And immediately this Israeli behind me was starting to honk me like within a second, I said, what do you think? And he said to me, no, you are selfish and oblivious. You should have immediately pulled off to the side of the road if you didn't know the way. And I just thought this was just so selfish and oblivious on this person's part. I mean, again, I've been to about 30 different countries in my life, and this is the only country. No, that's not true. There are some other countries, but very few, where there's just such a level of impatience. And for my friend, who I was hoping and expecting he would defend my actions and say, yeah, this is what we have to deal with in this country. No, he blamed me, as if within 2 seconds I should have already pulled off the side of the road, even though I didn't even know which way to go. I was just hesitating for a couple of seconds. Anyway, I'm babbling here. I'm rambling, but I think you get the idea. And I just want to say that whatever community I do end up setting up, wherever it is in this country, and it will be in this country, that the basis has to be mutual respect. The basis has to be allowing people to express their opinions with obviously some red lines, but those red lines have to be, really wide. You really have to cross the red line, and allowing people to have their differences of opinion, express their opinion, and be wrong, and to realize we all are wrong at times, including myself. So that's all I have to say about that issue. So, but I'm a little bit shocked by the behavior of Israelis. I know it because I lived in this country for many, many years. But I thought maybe things had gotten better, or I thought maybe I'd matured, so it wouldn't affect me as much, and it doesn't. I just go into my happy little, centered, deep breath, centered meditation place, and it doesn't really bother me. I watch them as if I'm like watching watching a movie or something like that. It doesn't bother me, so that has changed. I don't take it to heart, honestly. I don't. But it's sad to see. It's sad to see that this is the way people treat each other. That they are just selfish and oblivious to each other's needs. They'll cut in line. They'll cut in front of you in a car, on the road. I mean, where did they think that, like, the other person is not waiting to go in the same direction, that they have the right to just cut in front of you? I mean, what kind of culture is that? It's a culture maybe that's soaked up from the surrounding, quote unquote, Arabs, which is why we need to get rid of them, quite frankly. Their hideous culture has affected us. I think our culture would be better without them. but maybe they're a punishment for the way we act towards each other. At any rate, thank you, Mauricio. I appreciate that. Okay, so that's that. Now let's get into another topic. So, there was an issue that came up that's come up a number of times, and let me just bring it up here. And I just want to say this is brought up by on the Biblical Calendar Society group, which we have, which is kind of like a sister group, although it's not explicitly Karaite, and I don't want to make it explicitly Karaite. I want to make it open to everyone. It's Biblical Calendar Society, okay? But so there's a guy on there who's very knowledgeable, and his name is Dr. David Polin, and he and I are actually friends. I've spoken to him on the phone, I guess, really once, but we've interacted by text a number of times. And he's welcome anytime to come on here and refute this idea. So I'm not trying to, go behind his back and, disparage him or anything like that. God forbid. I have a lot of respect for his knowledge, but he keeps on putting forth the idea that the day in the Tanakh starts in the morning rather than in the evening. And I completely disagree with this. I'd like to go through some of the reasons why. I didn't prepare the sources, so I'm going to have to kind of wing it. But let me just see. I'm going to now read his. Let me see here. Let me see a second here if I can find it. If not, I'll just kind of wing it. Okay. So I'm going to read what he says right now. So he says, okay, the Hebrew Bible, reflecting many of the cultural and religious practices of the Canaanites, which he believes the Canaanites, which may be the case, began the day at sunrise. I'm sorry, he's saying here, one second, the evidence regarding the Canaanites and the practice beginning the day at sunset. In the Levant, here are some specific points. Babylonians, more abundant. One second, let me see what he's saying here. Piece of evidence clearly different the practice starting the day at sunset were well as the Canaanites back then. Okay, so wait a second. What am I missing here? One second. Oh, I see. This is someone else. Okay. One sec here. Okay, here's what he has to say. So this is what he says. As to the Babylonians, the evidence is clear and voluminous. So this is Dr. David Polina, I'm sorry. As to the Babylonians, the evidence is clear and voluminous that they started their days at sunset and months based on the reappearance of the moon after sunset, marking the first day of the month, the same as is our Karaite practice today. However, it is errant to infer, maybe I should just, let's see. Maybe I'll just post this as I'm reading it so you guys can see as well. Hi, Jasmine. Oops. Okay. However, it is errant to infer such to the Canaanites, who we have zero direct proof of any use of sunset days outside certain religious rites. Most scholars, including myself, hold that the Canaanites kept a calendar very close to that in the Tanakh. Sunrise days, lunar months, first day of the month based on the disappearance of the moon before sunrise, lunar weeks with Shabbat on the seventh day of each week. So he's saying that in the Tanakh, that days start on sunrise, and that the first day of the month is not based on what we do as Karaites, which is to look for the appearance of the new moon after astronomical new moon. Okay, after astronomical new moon becomes visible new moon at sunset. He's saying that it's the disappearance of the moon before sunrise. So the disappearance of the moon before sunrise would actually take place a couple of days earlier. It would take place before astronomical new moon, and I'm not going to get into all the details right now. But basically, he's saying that let's just focus on the days. He's saying that the Torah says that we should start our days and therefore things like Shabbat not at night but in the morning. Okay, and I totally disagree with this. Let me go on. And put the next comment of his here. Tanakh is very often read through the glasses of modern post-temple rabbinic Judaism, which adopted the sunset day from the Babylonians. This wasn't fully ingrained in Judaism until the Common Era, although the starting of the month as we do today began in the Second Temple period. Again, I completely disagree with him here. And let's just see if he brings specific texts that I can therefore go to and refute. But let me take his next paragraph. Okay, Torah is clear throughout as the perspective being days transitioning at sunrise. The oft-cited Bereshit creation narrative, which was the basis for the rabbinic drash adopting the Babylonian method, actually says that there was dusk and then dawn, not night and day. Erev and Boker are the beginning and ending periods of Lila, it should be, or Leil, I guess. Night with Hoshech, darkness between them. Thus, the text is merely poetically saying that then came night and directly connecting the day to the night. Get the rest of this. This is the Pshat. Plain meaning of the text is recognized by most scholars and even earlier Rashbam, Shmuel, etc. Okay. Let me just see if there's anything else I want to post here. So here he brings some verses. And he says, there are repeated cases where Torah tells us directly that the night following is the same day as the daylight previous. And we can take a look at some of these texts, perhaps. Let's take a look at this first one. Did I grab that whole thing there? 1 second. No, I didn't. Let me grab it again. Show. זבח תודה שלמה ביום קורבנו אחר לא יניח ממנו עד בוקר. And the flesh of the sacrifice of his peace offering for thanksgiving shall be eaten the same day that it is offered. He shall not leave any of it until the morning. Okay, so without getting into the details right now, maybe we will get a little bit into the details. Maybe I'll take this verse and explain what's going on, in my opinion. The words can have different meanings in the Torah depending on their context. And I always say there's a basic meaning and there is an extended meaning. Okay? So the basic meaning of day in the Torah is, he is correct in this, from the time the sun rises until the time the sun sets, from the time the sun peaks over the eastern horizon until the time that the sun descends below the western horizon. That is the technical meaning of day. But we have in the Torah a phenomenon that we could see throughout the Torah, which is what I like to call basic meaning and then extended meaning. So he's correct in that. But the extended meaning of day, and we see, and it's up to us using context to realize when the Torah is speaking about the basic meaning or the extended meaning. The extended meaning of day can be a 24-hour period, okay, which would be starting at the night before and continue until the following night, okay. And if we look at this, let's even maybe take a look at this, okay. Let's take a look at this verse. I'm just going to grab it. This is going to be in Leviticus 4 or so, but let me get exact chapter and verse. And let's just pick it apart a little bit. Just Google it and find the exact verse. Okay, so it's Leviticus 7, 15. So let me go there. Let me share the screen differently now. So Leviticus 7:16. And really, this requires an entire study on itself, on its own. So I'm not going to do it justice today. I'm just going to try to give a taste of what I'm trying to say, because I think it's very important. And I think David Polina, as much as I have respect for him and certainly respect his right to express what he believes to be true, I think he's dead wrong. And I believe I can prove it, but we don't have the time to do it today. So I'm just going to give a taste today. So let's look at this in the Hebrew, Leviticus 7:16. $7:15, I'm sorry. Okay. And here it is. Here's the verse. Okay. ובשר זבח תודה שלמהו ביום קורבנו יאכל לא יניח ממנו עד בוקר. Okay. So what this is saying, okay, and remember, we learned this not too long ago, right? We're in Leviticus now 16. This was Leviticus 7. This is speaking about what's called the peace offerings, usually translated as the peace offerings, or the fellowship offerings. And they're in different modes. I'm not going to call them types of offerings, but different modes of peace offerings. And one of them is the Todah, which means thank you or appreciation. So it's the, hey, thanks God. I really appreciate what you did for me, and I want to bring an offering to say, to really thank you. Okay. So the flesh of the slaughtered offering of the thank you mode of the peace offerings. It's a horrible translation, but we'll just go with it. Biyom korbano yechel. It should be eaten on the day that it is offered. Okay. Lo yanich mimenu ad boker. It should not be left, or nothing should be left from it until the morning. So what does this mean? Okay, I come at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Okay, the offerings are brought during the day, before sunset. Okay, I come at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and I bring the offering. Okay, and then I eat part of the offering. Okay, if we remember correctly, for the peace offerings, the person who brings it eats parts of it, and then parts of it also go to the Kohen. But it can be eaten during the day, and it can be eaten out. It can be eaten throughout the night, and but it cannot be left over once the sun rises. It should already be gone. Okay. And if it's not gone, then the implication, if I remember correctly, is that it's burnt. Okay. So what David wants to say with this verse, okay, is that day, okay, it should be eaten on the day of its bringing, okay, of its offering. So, but it can't be left over until the morning. So he's trying to say, well, what does day mean in this case? Okay, day means until the following morning. So he's trying to say that day ends, that the word day ends the following morning. Okay, once the sun rises the following morning, then that day is over, and therefore that this is proof that a day ends at sunrise. Okay, so in this verse, he's right. That's from the context what this means. But we have to remember that day can mean a lot of different things, depending on the context. It has its basic meaning, it has its extended meaning. The first thing to note is that this is not the basic meaning of the word day, of the word yom, because the basic meaning of the word yom, okay, the base meaning we can call it, is from the time the sun rises to the time the sun sets. But this is not from the time the sun rises until the time the sun sets. This is from the time you bring the korban, which is, let's say, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe 8 in the morning, until the sun rises the next day. Okay, so this is not from one sunrise until the next sunrise. This is from whenever you bring it until the next sunrise. Okay, but the other thing to point out, and so therefore it's not the basic meaning of yom, it's not the basic meaning of day, which is from sunrise to sunset. It's an extended meaning. And in this case, yes, this extended meaning means that until the following sunrise. Okay, but just because it means it here, the fact that it's an extended meaning, it doesn't mean that where yom is used, it always means that same thing. Okay, and if we could, I'll just grab this day yom, and maybe I'll try to find a verse which will prove a contradiction to it. Okay, let me go ahead a little bit here. So in Genesis, maybe I'll move ahead a little bit. Oops, it appears so many times. 2,303 occurrences on the day Yom. It is a very popular word, obviously. But I'll just go down, boom, like to here, and see if we can find something. Nope, I want to go down more. Let's see. Moshe Yechudu B'Yom Ki Shabbat Yom. That's kind of the basic meaning. Ish Mekomo B'Yom HaShvi'i Yishbatu B'Yom Machar Ha'am Kidashtem Hayom Machar Kipsu. Okay, I can't find it right now because it appears so many times. But let me just say, because I don't want this to be a full study, I just want to bring out the main point. Okay, and the main point is that even though the word yom in this case, in some of the proof verses that he brings, can mean, and I'm sure the other ones that he brings as well might have a similar meaning, can mean, in this case, it means until the sun comes up the following morning, that this is not always what the word yom means. Okay? Yom can mean different things. It can mean its basic meaning, its base meaning is from the time the sun rises to the time the sun sets, so approximately 12 hours, or longer in the summertime, shorter in the wintertime, but let's say approximately 12 hours. And then it has extended meanings. And yes, one of the extended meanings, clearly based on the context here, means until the following sunrise. But there could be other extended meanings where it means an entire 24-hour period. And when it's used in the context of an entire 24-hour period, then it's clear, in my opinion, and again, if I prepare the study properly, I'll bring actual proof verses, but it's my strong opinion that when it's used in that 24-hour period, that what it means is from sunset until the following sunset. That's a yom, okay? Or actually more technically, from sunset until the following day of full darkness, okay? And so one of the proofs that comes to mind offhand, and I already know what David Polina's response to this is, but let's look at it anyways in not Numbers, in Leviticus chapter 23. And that's what Yom HaKippurim. So let's read this. We'll start here in 27. And that will lead us right into Leviticus 16, because we're going to be speaking about Yom HaKippurim in Leviticus 16. Okay. But on the 10th day, doesn't say the word day there, but on the 10th of the 7th month, Hazeh, okay, on that 7th month, or the 7th month, And why does it say the 7th month? Because it's speaking about the 7th month earlier with the Yom HaTeruah. Okay, Yom HaKippurim is Yom HaKippurim. Hu Mikra Kodesh. This is Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. Yom HaKippurim Hu. Mikra Kodesh. Ye'elechem. It shall be a holy convocation. Okay, that's the way you translate it. I don't want to retranslate it right now. Why initem et nafshotechem, and you shall afflict your souls, which is understood as fasting. Yikravtem mishel Yahweh, and you shall bring fire offerings or a fire offering to Yahweh. Okay, v'chol malechet melacha lo ta'asu be'etzem hayom hazeh, and you shall not do any work, any unnecessary work, on this very day. Ki Yom Kippurim hu, because it is the Day of Atonement. Lechaper alechem lifnei Yahweh Elohechem, in order to atone for you. In order to atone for you before Yahweh your God. Okay, and let me just skip ahead. Okay. Okay. So let's just skip ahead. So this is Yom Kippurim. We're going to skip ahead to verse 32. Shabbat Shabbaton hu lechem. It is a Shabbat of rest. Okay. It is for you. When I need them at nashotechem, and you shall afflict your souls. Afflict yourselves, but afflict your souls. Semicolon. That's the etnach. That's the semicolon. And this is the key here. From the 9th of the evening. I'm sorry, from the 9th of the month, in the evening, from the evening until the evening, you shall cease in your rest. Okay, so we have here that Yom Kippurim. Okay, so we see here that Yom Kippurim takes place when? It takes place on the 10th of the month, of the 7th month. Okay, this is Yom Kippurim. This is the Day of Atonement. But when does the Day of Atonement occur? So first of all, Kol melacha lo tasu be'etzem hayom hazeh. You shall not do any work on this very day. And note the word here, this day, hayom. Okay, and then it's clarified exactly when this Yom Kippurim is. It's on the 9th of the month after sunset, from sunset to sunset, or from evening to evening, you shall cease from working. Okay, so here, even though it's called Yom Kippurim, when does it start? It starts not on the 10th. It says here that it's on the 10th day of the 7th month, but here we're clarified exactly when it starts and exactly when it ends. It starts at the 9th day, on the 9th day of the 7th month at sunset, and it goes from sunset to sunset, or it goes from evening to evening. Okay, so this Yom here clearly means, here we have a definite proof that the word Yom means from evening to evening. And this is one example. This is one clear example of how the word Yom does not have its base meaning of sunrise to sunset, and it does not have the other extended meaning that we saw in Leviticus 7:15 of whenever you bring the korban until the following sunrise. That in this case, it's called Yom Kippurim, but it clearly says from the evening of the 9th, and I'll explain what that means more specifically in a second, until the following evening. Okay? Now, why does it say the evening of the 9th? Well, this actually gives us some more insight into the way the biblical calendar works, because we know that Yom Kippurim starts on the 10th, but it says on the evening of the 9th is when you start doing this. Okay? This tells us that when the evening comes, okay, that this is the switchover from the 9th to the 10th. Otherwise, it would say Yom Kippurim is on the 9th and the 10th. Okay? If we were to go according to what David Polina believes, he believes that the 10th day really starts in the morning, the following morning, and lasts until, I don't know, I guess the evening. then there's a contradiction here. It wouldn't make sense. Because if we have that Yom HaKippurim is on the 10th day of the 7th month, then that would mean from the morning until the morning, according to David Paulina's view, that would mean the morning of the 10th until the evening of the 10th, only when the sun is out on the 10th. Okay? But it couldn't possibly mean that, because we see that we're supposed to cease from all work on Yom HaKippurim, and it's called the Day of Atonement. And this Day of Atonement clearly starts when the sun sets on the 9th. That's when the 10th begins, because that is in line with here. That's on only the 10th. Okay, so when the sun sets on the 9th, that's when the 10th day begins, and it continues until the next evening, which is when the 10th day ends. Okay, so David Paulina, what would his response be? He would say that this is the exception to the rule, and that's why the Torah points out explicitly that it's the 9th after sunset until the next evening. But that doesn't make sense, because if that were the case, then it would have to say that Yom HaKippurim is on the 9th and the 10th of the month, not on the 10th of the month. Okay? Because we see here that, again, on Yom HaKippurim, on the Day of Atonement, you're supposed to afflict your soul, okay? And you're not supposed to do any work. So according to David Paulina's definition, that would mean when the sun rises on the 10th until the sun sets on the 10th, you afflict your soul and you don't do any work. But here it says, when do you afflict your soul and not do any work? On the 9th, when the sun sets, until the following sunset, or actually until the following full darkness. Okay? Which implies that if we understand it according to David Paulina's way, then there's a contradiction here. And so it clearly, and there is no contradiction, it couldn't be. So it clearly shows us that one of the meanings of the day of the word Yom, the extended meaning, one of the extended meanings of the day of the word Yom is from evening until the following evening. Okay? So there's a whole lot more to say about this. And let's see what Mauricio says. If God specified the evening to the evening reckoning for these two feasts only, then we should do it for those two only, just as we saw last week with the water baths for Tum'ah. No, Mauricio, I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why I disagree with you. Let me just hide the comment here. Okay. It's not a matter of, okay, and so why did God specify it here with this feast, okay? Or with this festival, with Yom HaKippurim? Because it's so important. It's the most important festival of the year, okay? And so therefore it needs to be made 100% clear exactly what that means, okay? Because Yom can mean a couple of different days, a couple of different meanings. So now the Torah is pointing out clearly which meaning of Yom it's speaking about. But whenever Yom is used in a 24-hour period, or as a day, meaning a 24-hour period, it means from the evening until the evening. And it's not that the Torah is pointing it out because it's the exception. It's that the Torah is pointing it out to clarify which of the extended meanings of Yom is spoken about here. Okay? And the only time that Yom, whenever, I'm pretty sure I'm correct in saying this, there might be an exception somewhere, but whenever Yom is used as a 24-hour period, it means from sunset until the following sunset, or specifically from sunset until the following full darkness, period of about 25 hours. Okay? So it's not that this is an exception. It's that this is a clarification of which of the extended meanings of Yom is being spoken about here, because this holiday is so important that it has to be 100% clarified. Okay? So there's no mistakes. But so when we see the word Yom, or when we see any word in the Torah, we have to ask, what is the base meaning of the word? And then what are the extended meanings? And then which of the extended meanings are being used? The mistake that David Paulina is making, in my humble opinion, is that he's conflating two different extended meanings of the word Yom, and saying that because we have one extended meaning here, that whenever the word Yom is used not in its base form, but as an extended meaning, then it must have the same extended meaning. But that's not true. Words in biblical Hebrew can have one base meaning, and they can have multiple extended meanings. And so this is the fundamental error that David Paulina is making. Okay? again, what I really need to do is prepare. Okay, I will speak about this, Mauricio, because that's actually one of the other things I wanted to speak about. What I really need to do is prepare a formal study on this to make it more clear. But I just want to point out that this is the fundamental mistake that David Polina is making, and he's welcome to come on anytime he wants and refute and give his own opinion. I'm totally okay with that. So I'm not trying to bash him behind his back. God forbid. I'm not bashing him at all. I'm just giving my opinion. Let's talk about, but that's the fundamental mistake he's making. He's taking two different extended meanings of the word boker and he's conflating them. And this is a mistake. Let's take a look. Mauricio mentions boker from Bereshit 1:5. Let's take a look at that for a second. So again, once we understand this basic idea that there are basic meanings and extended meanings of words, and that the only way we can resolve which of those meanings is being used. Okay, and we have this in English, by the way. Let me think see if I can think of an example. Okay. Yeah, even in English, right? The word day can mean different things, right? It's day out means the sun is out. Or what day is today? It's the 13th, or what is it? The 20th of July. That means from the previous midnight until this midnight. That would cover that meaning of the word day. Or day could mean it will take me, it's 4:00 in the afternoon, something like that. And someone brings in their car and asks me, how long is it going to take to fix the car? Not that I'm a car mechanic, but I say it's going to take 2 days. Okay, what does that mean? It means it's going to be ready within 48 hours, right? So in that context, in that meaning of the word day means 24-hour period. So we have the same thing in English. It's not rocket science here, okay? Most languages, all languages, I would venture to guess, have basic meanings and extended meanings for words. Okay? Same could be said with a month. What month is it? It's July. Okay? How long until, when are you moving out of this house? In a month. Okay? If it's July 20th, that means I'm moving out on August 20th. Okay? Month can mean different things. Okay? So let's talk about verse 5 and let's look at a very important piece of information. Yikra Elohim le'or yom. So this is speaking about the first day of creation, when light and darkness are not created. We've spoken about this before when we went through Genesis. It's my strong opinion that this means that the primordial atmosphere of the earth had dissipated enough to the point where you could distinguish day from night. Because before that, you could not distinguish day from night, just like, for instance, you can on, I think, Venus, right? The cloud cover is so thick, you can't tell whether it's day or night, I believe. I've never been on Venus. Verse 5, Yikra Elohim la'or yom. So God called the light Yom, or specifically when light was visible in the sky, he called that Yom, day. L'choshek kara laila, and the time when there was darkness in the sky, he called that night. Waihi erev waihi boker yom echad, and there was evening and there was morning one day. Okay, so so the point here is, okay, erev, again, we're talking about base meanings and we're talking about extended meanings. The base meaning of erev, okay, the base meaning of erev comes from the underlying Hebrew root ayin resh vet, which means mix, and it's literally the mixing time. So it's the mix between day and night. It's not quite day, it's not quite night. But if there's a specific time, okay, that's the base meaning of the word erev, because it comes again from arav, which means to mix together, okay, which means to mix. Even in modern Hebrew, if you want to say I'm mixing up the stew, you say ani arbev, okay, arbev erev, okay, you can hear the erev there, okay. So the basic meaning is the mixing time, the time between sunset and what I like to call total darkness. So when I was living back in New York and I would go kayaking at night, then I always used to love to see when I'd be out in the middle of the bay around where I lived, and I would always like to see when the sky stopped or when it reached its maximum darkness. Okay, now maximum darkness in New York City, I wasn't in Manhattan, I was out in Queens, one of the suburbs of New York, but maximum darkness didn't mean that the sky was pitch black. The sky is never pitch black, right? It's very rare for a sky to be pitch black. There's stars, there's the moon, there's city lights, there's airplanes, there's street lights, right? So the sky is never 100% dark. But the idea is, when does it reach its maximal darkness? Excuse me, I'm just going to grab some water. Okay, when does it reach its maximal darkness for that particular day? So if it's a full moon, then maximal darkness might be a lot lighter than it would be if it's a new moon. Okay, or let's say there is a fireworks show that night, then maximal darkness is going to be a lot lighter than it would be if there were no fireworks show. Okay, so that's the end of Erev, when the sky reaches its maximal darkness for that night. Fireworks show is a bad example because it lasts temporarily, but you get the idea. Okay. When does it reach its maximal darkness? So that's the basic meaning of Erev, the mixing time from sunset until maximal darkness. Okay, but Erev can mean other things as well. And one of the extended meanings of Erev, and indeed the extending meanings of pretty much all of the time words in the Torah, is the period that starts when that phenomenon begins. Okay, so let's take, for instance, the word Chodesh. Okay, we see, if we go back to Leviticus 23, let's go back. How am I going to do this? Can I open this in a new tab? No, I can't. I'm just going to have to go back. Okay, I'll do it over here. Well, we don't have to go back, right? We saw that Yom HaKippurim takes place in the seventh month, Chodesh HaShvi'i. But what does the word Chodesh mean? The word Chodesh comes from the underlying root Chadash, Het Daled Shin, which means new. Okay, it doesn't even mean new moon. It just means new. Okay, so Chadash means new. Chodesh means the new moon. So the basic meaning of Chodesh, and it's used throughout the Torah to mean exactly this, is the new moon. When the new moon becomes visible, the thing that we look for each month, right? The visible new moon that we as Karaites go out, and in the Biblical Calendar Society, that we go out and look for each month. That's the Chodesh. It's the new moon, okay? But that's the basic meaning. The extended meaning of the word Chodesh is the entire period from one new moon until the next new moon, like we saw in Leviticus 23. That Yom HaKippurim, the Day of Atonement, takes place in the Chodesh HaShvi'i, in the seventh month. It doesn't mean the seventh new moon. It means the seventh period that begins with the period that begins with the seventh new moon and lasts until the next new moon. So we see a phenomenon that specific times can, by extended meaning, can represent the time that begins at that phenomenon and continues until the next occurrence of that phenomenon. And I hope that's clear, especially to Mauricio. Okay? So what does this mean here? This is an extended meaning. Again, whenever we look at meanings of words in the Torah, we have to ask ourselves, are we looking at the basic meaning? Are we looking at the extended meaning? If we're looking at the extended meaning, which of the possible multiple extended meanings are we looking at? And we cannot conflate those different extended meanings, or else we're going to run into trouble. And that's, again, what David Polina does here. Okay? This is an extended meaning, and this means the period of time that begins at sunset. When the Erev begins, again, what is Erev? The basic meaning of Erev is from the moment the sun dips below the western horizon until maximal darkness, approximately an hour later in most parts of the world. Okay? The farther you are away from the equator, then the longer that period is going to be. Okay? But it's usually approximately an hour where most people in the world live. Okay? So, but the extended meaning here means the period starting when the sun sets until what? Until Boker. Okay? until the period starting when the sun rises the next day. Okay, so this would be like saying, okay, if we translate this into English, literally, it would be Waihi erev Waihi boker yom echad. Okay, there was evening and there was morning one day. But what does this mean? This means, what is the one day? The one day is the period starting when the evening begins, when the sun sets, until the end of that period, until Boker, right? So we have here, because it's in parallel with Boker, until the Boker, which is when the sun rises. So that's an approximately 12-hour period. So Erev in this context means a 12-hour period, and therefore, by parallelism, okay, there are three types of parallelism in the Torah. Okay, I have to remember the technical names, but it's synonymous parallelism, antonymous parallelism, and complementary parallelism. Okay, synonymous parallelism, which we have here essentially, means it's not exactly synonymous parallelism, but it's along the lines of synonymous parallelism. Means, and we have a lot of parallelism. That means different portions of a verse are in parallel with each other, and they're meant to, in a certain sense, be synonymous to each other or to be similar to each other. Okay, so we see here that Vayhi Erev Vayhi Boker, this clearly says that there was evening, there was morning, that if this evening lasts until the morning, that's a 12-hour period. And therefore, since these two versets, these two portions of the verse are in parallelism, we can even tell by the language, Vayhi Erev Vayhi Boker, that means that this word Boker is talking about from when the sun rises until when the sun sets. So this period here is from when the sun sets until the sun rises. Then comes the Boker, and this is from when the sun rises until the sun sets. And together they make Yom Echad. They make an entire day. Here we have an extended meaning of the word Yom, and that extended meaning is the 24-hour period meaning, okay, of the word Yom. And we see clearly that 24-hour period begins when the sun sets until, again, the sun sets the following day. The mistake that David Polina is making here is, if I remember exactly how he interprets this verse, okay, is he's saying that Boker specifically means the point of time when the sun rises, and it does in its basic meaning. That's what it means. Bakar means to shine bright. Okay, Bet Kuf Resh means to shine. Okay, so Boker means the sunshine, the sunrise. Okay, and it does. That is the basic meaning. Just as Erev, the basic meaning means the mixing time or the initiation, the time of the initiation of the mixing time, which is sunset. Okay, but really what this is saying here is this: we're not using basic meanings here, we're using extended meanings. And which extended meanings are we using? It's clear from the context that if this word Erev lasts until Boker, and how do we know it lasts until Boker? Because that's the thing that follows the Erev, right? So we have an Erev and then we have a Boker. So this is a 12-hour period, again, approximately 12 hours longer in the summertime, shorter in the wintertime. This is a 12-hour period. Then by synonymous parallelism, this is also a 12-hour period. So these words here, or this word here, is now speaking about sunset to sunrise, and this word here is speaking about sunrise to sunset. Together, this is a 12-hour period. This is a 12-hour period. 12 plus 12 equals 24. Together, they make a yom, and that is what the meaning of the word yom is here. It's a 24-hour period starting with sunset and continuing until the following sunset. And that's the way to correctly interpret those verses. And Marisa says it's clear, but nowhere in the Torah, Boker means the whole daylight. That's not true. It does right here. And Mauricio says Boker to refer to the daylight period was a rabbinite invention to reconcile with our son. No, that's not true, Mauricio. That is absolutely not true. It's not true. It's right here in the Torah. Okay? It's right here. And I've explained why it's right here. Okay? And we can find many other examples. If I have the time to do a formal study on this, then I will, and we'll see why it's the case. Okay? But the key here is basic meanings and extended meanings, to realize there's a basic meaning to a word and there could be multiple extended meanings. And we have to figure out which extended meaning is being used. And the only way we can do that is from the context. And I think the context here is quite clear. Excuse me for 1 second. 1 second, please. Turn off some lights. Okay. Because it's getting late here. It's almost Erev. It's almost evening. Okay. So I hope that's clear. And that's my take on it. No, it's more than my take on it. This is, in my very strong opinion, this is the correct interpretation. And David Polina's explanation is incorrect because it's too literal an interpretation of the Torah. And this is the mistake. If you want to talk about being rabbinical, this is a mistake the rabbis make. The rabbis always accuse the Karaites of being too literal, of interpreting the Torah too literally, but actually it's the Rabbinites that interpret the Torah too literally. The classic example is tefillin, which they interpret those verses instead of figuratively, they interpret them literally. And the mistake that David Polina is making, he's pretending he's being, or he's thinking he's being anti-rabbinical. And again, this is not a personal attack on him whatsoever. And he's welcome anytime to come here and give his point of view. And I'm even willing to have a debate with him. But it's a professional attack on his, not an attack, it's a professional refutation of his approach. And the mistake, in my opinion, that he's making is that he is taking too, quote unquote, a too literal approach to these words in the Torah. And that's not the way the Torah works. The Torah has basic meanings, extended, and even poetic meanings, which maybe we consider even further than extended meanings, okay? But a basic meaning can have a multiple extended meanings, and those multiple extended meanings cannot be conflated with each other. You can't say just because it has an extended meaning, or because one extended meaning is used here, that's the same extended meaning that's used there. Okay, it has to be resolved from the context. If there's one thing that we as Karaites teach, it's that you have to resolve meanings of words contextually, or that's one of the primary ways that we resolve the meanings of words. Okay, so. Okay, so that's the end of that topic. And I won't even say comments or questions because I think we spent enough time on it, and I think my point of view is clear. I'm fully willing to discuss it more at length, and as I said, even willing to have a debate with Dr. David Polina on the issue. Okay, all right. I don't even have to plug in yet. Okay. All right. Any questions, any comments before we move on to Leviticus chapter 16? If not, then let's do exactly that. And by the way, I wasn't able to connect to Twitter today, which is why we have fewer people here. Usually we get a bunch of people from Twitter. For some reason, now it's saying a premium account on X. Twitter is required to create live broadcasts on their platform, blah, blah, blah. I'll see whether I want to do that or not, or maybe I'll just use a completely different platform altogether, like TikTok. Maybe we can live stream to TikTok, or what's the other big thing these days? Discord. We'll see. Okay, so let's go on to Leviticus chapter 16. Let's take a break with one song. So I can rest and drink a little bit of water. Let's see. Oh, I love this song. That's a great song. Oh, I forgot. I can't do this because it's copyrighted, and they'll ding it. They'll ding the whole video. Hopefully that wasn't. Hopefully they didn't catch it. Hopefully it's too small an amount. All right, let's see. All right, what can we put on? How about? All right, it's always a good choice. Even though I put it on earlier, I'll put it on again. The Ladino song.
alta, alta es la luna cuando empieza a esclarecer. Y yo hermosa y sin ventura nunca llegué a nacer. Y yo hermosa y sin ventura nunca llegué a nacer. Mis ojos se hincharon de tanto mirar la mar. Vapóricos van y vienen, letra para mí no hay. Vapóricos van y vienen, letra para mí no hay. Es hermoso, dos taras tiene con él, la una que arrolla dos, la otra que echa sheshbesh. La una que arrolla dos, la otra que echa sheshbesh. Mi querido es alto y vano y una vara de expander. Mi madre hizo colada, lo metió a detener. Mi madre hizo colada, lo metió a detener. Na, 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 na.
Okay, let me share the screen again. And let's dig into Leviticus chapter 16. Okay, you guys can all hear me, see the screen, see the text we're studying. So we're going to talk about now Yom HaKippurim. We're going to talk about the Day of Atonement. So we've kind of gotten through the portion of Leviticus that deals specifically with impurity and purity issues. And so we've gotten really through, as I mentioned last week, kind of over the hump, if you ask me. Leviticus is 27 chapters, so we're more than halfway through. The most difficult part is dealing with these issues of ritual impurity and ritual purity. Specifically, I think tzara'at, what is poorly translated as leprosy. It's very esoteric, it's very obscure, and we've gotten past that. We're going to get into slightly more accessible concepts now. Although Leviticus, as a rule, because most of it deals with issues of the temple, the tabernacle, sacrifices, purity, impurity, and has very little narrative. Most of it is somewhat obscure and inaccessible. But if we can get through Leviticus, we can get through anything. And now we're going to go on to Leviticus chapter 16, which is going to speak about the Day of Atonement, which we saw in Exodus chapter 20. In Leviticus chapter 23. We'll get to that too. And that's the summary of the holidays. And we're going to see that the Day of Atonement is not first and foremost, as I mentioned last week, and I mentioned a number of times, it's not first and foremost about, oh my God, I stole bubble gum from the grocery store down the street, or I spoke gossip about my fellow man, and I spoke gossip about my aunt, or I don't know, I scratched someone's car and leave the phone number on the windshield. That's honestly secondary, if even at all covered by Yom HaKippurim. It's not even clear that that's at all covered by Yom HaKippurim. The main context of Yom HaKippurim, or the main purpose of Yom HaKippurim, is to atone for, or we gain atonement, so it is to atone for us, but it's to atone for us over inadvertent sins that might have caused impurities to come in contact with the tabernacle. Remember, we said many times, and let me just bring this up for a second. So, let me just bring this up. Okay, we said many times that, and if I bring this up, it'll become clearer. Here, okay? Make this bigger. Okay, this is the rule. We have clean, tahor, and we have unclean, tameh. We have not clean, tahor is not having the cooties. Unclean, or tameh, is having the cooties. Then we have kodesh and chol. Kodesh is holy, and profane is chol. And chol is profane. Profane, chol just means not holy. Okay? So what does holy mean? Okay, let me just explain this first. We've spoken about it before. So if you are in a state of cleanliness, then you can come in contact with that which is holy, and you can come in contact with that which is profane. Profane doesn't mean, it's not a negative connotation. It just means that which is not holy, that which is average, day to day. Okay? If you're unclean, then you can come in contact with that which is profane. So, for instance, you can walk into the marketplace, you can walk into the supermarket, you can walk into a synagogue, even a Karaite synagogue, although they don't like it. And that's if you're in a state of uncleanliness, ritual uncleanliness, if you have the cooties, if you are tameh. But here's the big no-no. If you are tameh, if you're in a state of ritual uncleanliness, then you cannot come in contact with that which is holy. And if you do, it's a big, big no-no. A big no-no. You have now defiled God's holy areas. What is the definition of the holy areas? It's as we've seen before. I'll bring it up again. Map of tabernacle. Okay. The holy area is defined by anything that is inside. This is the tabernacle, anything that is inside the tabernacle courtyard. And when the temple is built, anything that's inside the temple courtyard, because that was the analog. Okay. This is the holy area, and you are not allowed into this holy area if you're in a state of ritual impurity, if you have the cooties. If you do, you have now defiled God's sanctuary, his mikdash, his holy area. Okay. And that's what Yom HaKippurim, that's what the Day of Atonement is really all about. Because it might have happened throughout the year. People might have inadvertently come into this area not knowing they were in a state of uncleanliness, or God forbid, even knew and they did it on purpose. Although this is really dealing with inadvertent defiling of the holy area. Or there are other things which we'll get to eventually, which are things that are dedicated to the temple, such as the tithes, which are dedicated essentially to God. They also become holy. Since they're dedicated to God, they become holy. And you're not allowed to have contact with them. You're not allowed to eat food that's dedicated to God if you're in a state of uncleanliness. That's called the Kodesh. Okay? But it might happen inadvertently. Now we know that there are different types of sacrifices. We learned about the 5 basic types of sacrifices. Okay? The Olah, the Mincha, the Shlamim, the Chatat, and the Asham. And we saw that the Chatat deals with the specific issue of inadvertently doing some kind of transgression not knowing about it. And how do you gain for atonement for it if you did it inadvertently? You might have done it inadvertently, or you did it and you found out later about it, or you did it and you just want to, cover your butt anyway, right? CYA, cover your ass anyway, cover your holy ass anyway, right? That's where the chatat comes into play. And we saw also that the chatat is usually speaking about this very context of inadvertently or potentially inadvertently coming into contact with that which is holy, that which is with the holy province of God, that which is holy, while you're in a state of ritual impurity. And if it's some other kind of crime that you did inadvertently, like I don't know, you by mistake you took your friend's headphones from the Starbucks, and or someone's headphones from the Starbucks, and you didn't realize it until you got home. It was a completely inadvertent. I mean, that was already a mistake. Maybe that's not a good example, but you get the idea. That's not a chatat. That would be now an asham. Okay, chatat seems almost always to deal with inadvertent defilement or potential inadvertent defilement of a holy place, of the holy place. The only holy places or the only holy provinces in stipulated by the Tanakh are within the temple of the tabernacle / courtyard, and things that have been food and other things that have been dedicated to God. Food, basically. Okay? And that's what the chatat, that's what the sin offering, again, usually translated as sin offering, is for. So, this is where Yom HaKippurim comes in. It's all about this. It's all about, hey, during the past year, we may have inadvertently come in contact with the holy, while being in a state of ritual impurity, while having the cooties, and that's really bad. If you keep on doing this a lot, then eventually God lashes out. He does not want his precious house to be defiled. Just again, you wouldn't step into the White House if you just trudge through dog poop, or if you're dressed like what's his name, Fetterman from Pennsylvania, right? It would defile the White House. It would defile the honor of the White House. It's the same idea here, and this is the essence of Yom HaKippurim. It's a ceremony, or it's a ritual, a set of rituals that's designed to gain atonement for any inadvertent defiling of the tabernacle / temple area. And that's the context we have to understand Yom HaKippurim in. Not, oh, I spoke lashon hara about my friend. I gossiped behind his back, and therefore I'm asking for atonement. That's a bad thing. You shouldn't do that. And it's possible. I still haven't come to a conclusion myself as to whether Yom HaKippurim is also speaking about that. But if it is, that's secondary. The primary purpose of Yom HaKippurim is to gain atonement, to basically gain a fresh start for the tabernacle / temple once a year by cleaning out any inadvertent defilement of the holy areas that might have occurred during the past year. And that's the way we have to understand Yom HaKippurim. Okay? So with that in mind, let's dig in and see what's going on. Verse 1, Vayidaber Yahweh el Moshe, acharei mot shnei bnei Aaron. So Yahweh spoke to Moses after the death of the two sons of Aaron. When they brought an offering before Yahweh and they died. So what are we talking about? It's been a while since we studied it, so we may have forgotten, but that's Leviticus chapter 10. I'm sorry, 10. Okay, and that's the death of Nadav and Avihu. Remember, they brought an incense offering that was not part of the official service, the official or prescribed service in the Torah. They just decided on their own to bring in an incense offering, and they were put to death. So they violated. So in that case, they weren't necessarily in a state of impurity, but what they did is they violated the rules for the systematic, the cultic, quote unquote, worship of Yahweh. Okay, so maybe it also includes that it also would include such instances. Any violation of of the cultic, and cultic doesn't mean a cult, as we said. Cultic is just the academic way of saying the systematized worship of Yahweh. I have to plug in a minute. So let's go on. Verse 2. So that's the context here, okay? There was a violation of the cultic worship of Yahweh, and these laws were given afterwards, or right afterwards. Verse 2. Yamer Yahweh el Moshe, daber el Aharon achicha. So speak to Aaron your brother, al yavo bechol et el hakodesh mibet leparochet el pnei kaporet asher al haaron velo yamut ki be'anan ra'e el al hakaporet. Okay. So Yahweh said to Moses, just give me one more second. It's a little bit hot in here. Open some windows. One second, please. Okay, let's do some air circulation. 1 second. Okay, so verse 2, Leviticus 16, verse 2. So, Wayomer Yahweh el Moshe, so Yahweh said to Moses, Daber el Aharon achicha, speak to your brother Aaron, va'al yavo bechol et el hakodesh mibeit leparochet, el pnei kaporet asher al haaron velo yamut ki be'anan ira'e al hakaporet. Okay, so we have to break this apart, and I'm going to just paraphrase here. What Moses is telling Aaron here is to never come into this area here. This is the holy area. Okay, this here is the tent of meeting, the Ohel Moed, the tent of meeting. This is called the holy area, the Kodesh. I'm sorry, the Kadosh. And this is the holy of holy area, the Kadosh Kadoshim. Within the holy of holy area, we have the Ark of the Covenant. On the Ark of the Covenant, we have the Ark cover. Let me just get a picture again. Okay. Where's my picture? Uh-oh. Images, how do I do this? Well, you get the idea. Here it is, okay? So let me just make this a bit bigger. Jeez, what a pain in the neck. Okay, good enough. All right, there's the Ark of the Covenant. Whoa. Here's the Ark of the Covenant. On the top of the Ark of the Covenant, we have the Ark cover. That's called the Kaporet. It just means Ark. It just means the cover. And on that, okay, on that Ark cover, we have the cherubim, the two angels, the two cherubim. No, I don't like this picture of it because it keeps on bringing pop-ups and stuff. 1 second here. Oh, darn. 1 second. Let's do this again. Okay, so here we have the cherubim. Okay, the cherubim have wings. They each have two wings, and where the wings touch, in between the two wings, or where the two wings of the cherubim touch, that's where the glory of God sits. That's where the glory of God dwells on this planet. And again, let me see if I can get a bigger picture here. Just to make it a bit more. There we go. Okay, that's where the glory of God dwells on planet Earth, right there. Okay, and we've studied the glory of God Kavod Yahweh. We've studied it on an ongoing basis. We studied it last week, and we saw that this is the, again, spiritual or the energetic essence of Yahweh on this planet. Okay, and we saw that it always, one of the things we saw last week when we studied it is that you can never look at it directly. It always is shrouded within some kind of cloud or smoke or something. Okay, and this is exactly what's being said here, or kind of what's being said here, that Moses, that Aaron, and that means the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, is not allowed to go into this area, into the Holy of Holies. Close this off. Mibet laparochet, inside the curtain that separates the holy from the Holy of Holies, meaning into the Holy of Holy areas. El pnei kaporet, and face the, or see, or be before the kaporet, the cover of the ark cover. Okay. Asher ala haron, which is on the Ark of the Covenant, but lo yamut, in order that he not die, if he doesn't want to die. Ki be'enan ela ala kaporet, because only on a cloud, only through a cloud will I appear on the Ark Covenant, on the Ark cover. Okay. So if you go in there and you're not looking at this point right here, that's where the Kavod Yahweh, that's where the glory of God dwells on this planet. That's his literal, the emanation of whatever existence he can have on a physical planet. And no, again, we spoke about it. He doesn't have any physical existence himself. It's, again, I'm just using the best terms I can use to kind of describe it as best as I can understand it. It's some kind of spiritual energy emanation from that point. Okay, so it emanates from a certain point, a certain physical point, but it itself is not physical. The Kavod Yahweh is not physical. And you're not allowed to look at it directly. It must be shrouded in some kind of cloud. So if Aaron goes in and looks at it directly, he's going to die. Lo yireni adam v'chai. That's what Yahweh tells Moses when Moses wants to see his glory. Yahweh says, you cannot see my glory directly, ki lo yireni adam v'chai, because no person can see me and live. Or maybe alternatively, no person can see me directly while he's alive. So if Aaron doesn't want to die, then he cannot walk into that Holy of Holies area, Holy of Holy area, okay? Unless, and that's what verse 3 is about, and then I have to plug in, B'zot yavo Aaron el HaKodesh, only in such a way can Aaron go into the holy area, and really it means the Holy of Holy areas, B'par ben bakar, l'chatat wa'al olah. So if he wants to go into the holy area, this is what he has to do. First, he has to bring a par ben bakar, which we can look up on our animal terms, but basically it means a yearling male calf, okay, or a young male calf, the chatat, as a sin offering. Remember, we said we're not calling it a sin offering; we're calling it a recompense from inadvertent transgression offering. That's a mouthful, but basically, this fits exactly in line with the purpose of a chatat. A chatat is I either did or I may have inadvertently defiled. I either know that I did for sure, or I suspect I may have, or I'm just trying to cover my butt just in case, even though I don't know about it, just in case I might have. Even though I don't think I did, I might have somehow defiled the holy area. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring a chatat, and that's basically my way of saying, listen, I want to gain atonement for that. I want it erased off my slate. Even if I completely don't even know if I did it, if I didn't do it on purpose, or I don't even know, I may have done it on purpose, I have no idea. Okay, that's what chatat is. We saw it, and it specifically again here has to do with defiling the holy areas. Okay, in this case, not in the case of Tumah, but in this case, going in, or potentially going in and seeing the glory of God on or between the cherubim that is on the cover of the ark. Okay, wa'ayel olah, and a ram for a burnt offering, a fully burnt offering. And again, burnt offering is kind of like your basic offering. It goes everything, or many offerings go with it, or it goes with many offerings. It's kind of like, hey, this is like, my basic offering. It means, again, the whole animal is burnt on the altar. Okay, so Aaron, the Kohen Gadol, the chief priest, the high priest, has to bring both a sin offering and a burnt offering before he goes in, but that's not all. We're going to see what else. And now I have to plug in. So just give me a second here. Let's see how I'm going to do this. Gotta whip out the extension cord. 1 second. One second, please. So, give me a minute here. While I plug in, down to 6%. Oh boy. Okay, that's that. One more second here. Okay, we're plugging. No, now we're plugging. Okay, so okay, so he brings a sin offering. He brings a fully burnt offering first. Okay, basically it's like, hey, you know, I'm bringing a sin offering just in case I do anything wrong or may have done something wrong. Here's the sin offering. I want that wiped off my slate. And here's a burnt offering to, you know, to butter you up a little bit, because Yahweh loves the scent of the burnt offering. Okay. Then ketonet bad kodesh yodbash michnase bad yi'u al bisaro bavnet bad yachgor ubemitznefet bad yitznof bigdei kodesh hem warachatz b'mayim et bisaro u levashem. Okay, so then he's going to have to be dressed a certain way. He has to go with a ketonet bad, so a linen. How do they translate ketonet? Tunic and linen underpants. And then avnet, and avnet is a sash or a belt. And the mitznefet. Mitznefet is a turban. So he has to wear these 4 things. And I think what's important to point out here is he's the Kohen Gadol, but this is not his usual Kohen Gadol clothes. Okay, so let's look at that for a second. Okay, so if you remember when we studied Exodus, so this is the full garb of the Kohen Gadol. Let's see if I can get a better picture here. Okay. And this is not what he's wearing when he goes in to the Holy of Holies. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, I'm not mistaken. This is exactly what a lay Kohen would wear. Let me just verify that. Clothes of a lay Kohen. Okay, so we can see that these are the 4 things that a lay Kohen wears. Oh boy. Yikes. Well, we can see it in this picture here. Okay, this is the ketonet. This is the tunic. This is the michnasei bad. This is the linen underpants. This is the mitznefet. That's the turban, and this is the avnet. That's the sash or the belt. Okay, so basically, what we see here is that even though he's the Kohen Gadol, when he goes in to the Holy of Holy areas, when he goes into that inner sanctum, this area here, he's not wearing the dress of the Kohen Gadol, this whole getup, which includes the Urim V'Tumim, which includes the Choshen HaMishpat, which includes the tzitz, the mitznefet, the ephod, this multicolored garment, includes the ketonet with the pomegranates. He's not wearing any of his decked out Kohen Gadol garb. He's wearing the garb of a regular Kohen. It's very humble garb. It's all white, I guess, according to this picture, except for the avnet, except for the sash, which may not be white. But he's wearing regular, or the garb of a regular Kohen. He's not wearing the special Kohen Gadol garb. Okay? And if we had more time, I would go back and find the garb of the regular Kohen. Maybe we should do that since we do have time. We're not in a rush to finish anything off. Okay. So garb of regular Kohen. Let's see here. So Bigdei Kehuna, priestly garments. So it's mandated in the Torah, where Exodus 28, the Kohanim, priests who were descendants of Aaron. Oh God, I gotta turn my fan. It's hot. 1 second. Wore special clothing while serving in the Holy Temple in Jerusalem. The rank and file priests were assigned 4 garments, while the high priest had 8. The 4 garments of the ordinary priest are the ketonet, a long linen tunic that reached until the heels; avnet, a long sash made of linen and red, purple, and blue wool worn over the heart, or over the waist; migba'at, a linen turban around the head; and michnasaim, knee-length linen trousers. So these are the 4. These are the 4 garments. Okay, here it's not called a migba'at. It is called oops. Where is it? It's sneffet, but it's the same idea. It's a turban. Okay, so he's wearing, as he goes in to the Holy of Holies, he's wearing not his Kohen Gadol outfit, even though he is the Kohen Gadol. Only the Kohen Gadol is allowed to go into the Holy of Holies. He's wearing just the regular garments of the lay Kohen, of the average Kohen. Okay. Bigdei Kodashim, they are the holy clothing. Urahatz b'mayim ed b'saro levashem. So first he's going to bathe himself in water. Why is he going to bathe himself in water? Because that's a ritual for cleaning, for getting rid of the cooties, for just being physically clean. But also, we know that bathing one's flesh in water, bathing one's body in water, is one of the ways we saw in previous chapters, one of the ways that one gets rid of ritual impurity. Usually it says wait until the evening, but in this case, he bathes himself in water and then puts the clothes on. Okay. Verse 5. So now, after he does that, so remember, he brought first a young male calf and a ram as a sin offering and as a guilt offering. I'm sorry, as a burnt offering, and that seems to be for himself. Now he's going to bring one from the entire congregation, or representing, or for the entire congregation of Israel. Me'et adat b'nei Israel, and from the community of the children of Israel, yikach shnei seirei chayzim, She'll take two young goats, in other words, two kids, male young goats, the chatat for sin offering, and we'll talk about that in a second. That's going to be interesting. And then he's going to take a ram as a burnt offering. Just like above, he took a ram for burnt offering. Now he's taking a ram for burnt offering. And if we had time, we'd go back and we'd cross-reference when do you take a ram for a burnt offering. Okay? So at different times, we take different things. But we're not going to do that. Okay, so we're talking about how many animals total so far. We're talking about 5 animals total. For himself, he has a male calf for a sin offering, and he has a ram for a fully burnt offering. For the children of Israel, he has 2 young goats as sin offerings, and another ram as a burnt offering. Verse 6. ויקריב אהרון את פר החטאת אשר לו, וכיפר בעדו בעד ביתו. So the first thing he's going to do is take that, remember, 2 sets of offerings, one for him and his household, and I guess for the rest of the Kohanim, it's implying. So now he's going to take that sin offering and do it according to the laws of the sin offerings, sacrifice according to the laws of the sin offering. And in doing so, he's going to gain atonement for himself and for his household, meaning for the rest of the Kohanim, or maybe just for his direct family. I would think it means for the rest of the Kohanim. Verse 7. ולקח את שני השעירים והעמיד אותם לפני יהוה פתח אוהל מועד. So now we get to a very famous couple of verses. These are the verses of the scapegoat. So he dealt with the sin offering for himself and his own family, or for all of the Kohanim. If you want to understand it that way, I guess we could debate about that, but not now. And then he's going to take the 2 goats, the 2 baby goats, the 2 kids, and he's going to present them or stand them before Yahweh at the Petach Ohel Moed, at the opening at the entrance of the tent of meeting. We know from seeing this phrase Petach Ohel Moed, the entrance to the tent of meeting. We've seen this phrase many, many times in Leviticus, and what it means is in the courtyard. Okay. Here's the Ohel Moed. This is the entrance of the Ohel Moed, so it doesn't mean literally right here. It means he's going to stand them up in the courtyard. If I remember correctly, it might mean specifically on this side of the courtyard, or maybe anywhere in the courtyard. Basically means around the altar of sacrifice, the brazen altar. Verse 8. ונתן אהרון אל שני השעירים גורלות, and he's going to, and Aaron, whenever it says Aaron, it means the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, is going to place 2 lots, L-O-T-S, on the 2 baby goats. Goral achal Yahweh. 1 lot is going to distinguish, or is going to set aside that animal for Yahweh. And we'll see what that means. And 1 is going to set it aside for Azazel. Azazel, nobody knows what this word means. There's a lot of different speculation. Azazel means, it's usually translated as out into the desert, out into the wilderness. Some people say, and I disagree with this, but some people say that it is the name of an ancient Canaanite, or maybe it wasn't Canaanite, an ancient god, which means the god of the desert or something like this. There's all kinds of different interpretations of what it means. But from the context, it's clear that it means that this other goat is sent out into the wilderness. Some people say driven off a cliff, and that's why he's called a scapegoat, like escape, landscape, but the word scape really means a cliff. Let's even look that up. Oops. Escape. So I don't know why it doesn't say it. They're bringing the botanical meaning of the word. Let's just do it this way. Escape, meaning cliff. Okay, I can't find it right now. But at any rate, escape basically means a cliff or a sharp drop. Okay. And so the scapegoat is the goat that's sent off a cliff. I believe maybe scape just means like landscape or like a wilderness. I always thought it meant, but now it seems maybe it's not. It doesn't matter what it means. He's sent off into the wilderness, but the scapegoat is generally thought of as the goat that's driven off a cliff, although that's not necessarily explicit here. Okay. And that's a scapegoat. So what are these two? So lots are drawn. And what does it mean, lots are drawn? It could mean a lot of different things, but it's like maybe flipping a coin. I mean, they didn't flip a coin in ancient times. I don't know what they did. I know scholars have studied exactly how goralot, exactly how lots were drawn in ancient Israel. I don't remember it offhand. I'd have to go look it up. But somehow or another, it's determined one of which goat is going to be dedicated to Yahweh and basically sacrificed, and the other one which is going to be sent out to Lazazel, into the wilderness or off a cliff. Okay, and this is the scapegoat, the one that is sent out into the wilderness. And let's get a Robert Alter on this one, just for heck of it, because I know what he's going to say already. He's going to bring that idea that Azazel was a foreign god, but let's just look it up for the heck of it anyway. Okay. Torah, Robert Alter. And I assume he's just going to translate it by transliterating it. He's just going to say to Azazel or something like that. But let's see. Sometimes he surprises me. So this is Leviticus 16. Right. And he doesn't translate it. He just transliterates it. And one for Azazel. Let's see his commentary on that. I have a feeling he's going to have a large commentary on that. 969. Okay, as countless seals and other ancient inscriptions unearthed by archaeologists attest, the use of a proper name or title prefixed by the letter Lamed as a lamed of possession was a standard form for indicating that the object in question belonged to so and so, as Lamelech the kings. I believe that comes from pottery that was found in Ramat Rachel in Jerusalem. These words, then, in the Hebrew, each is a single word. Le Yahweh and Le Azazel are the actual texts written on the two lots. Much ink since late antiquity has been spilled over the identity of Azazel, but the most plausible understanding, it is a very old one, is that it is the name of a goatish demon or deity associated with the remote wilderness. The name appears to reflect Ez, or goat. So yeah, as I suspected, he's relating it to this deity of the desert. But as he points out here, so Azazel, so the Hebrew word for goat, we can see here is the plural is azim, that means goats, but the singular is ez. And we see here that Azazel, we see here after le, K2 or 4, Azazel, the next two letters are, if I can point them out here, do this? Oops. No, I can't. But you can see it here. These two letters, Azel, is Ayin Zion. It's the same letters as goat. Okay, so goat is Ayin Zion. And Azazel, after the Lamed, which means just 2 or 4, starts with Ayin Zion, which means goat. And Azal, actually, that might be an Aramaic word, so I'd have to look it up. I don't know if it's ever used in Hebrew, but Azal in Aramaic, at the very least, means to, I think it is used in biblical Hebrew, means to go. So going out to the goat or something like that, Azazel, to the goat going out or something like that, is sometimes the way that it's translated. Okay, but it is interesting that we see Ayin Zion, which are the 2 letters for the word goat here. So again, Robert Alter is just bringing a very standard explanation, which is saying, which I've heard for years, which is that it's some kind of goat demon or goat god. I don't know that that's the case. I don't think so, because I don't think the ancient Israelites believed in demons, or they certainly didn't believe in foreign gods, and I'm pretty sure they didn't believe in demons. But that's one explanation. We could sit here and we can get 1,000,001 other explanations, but let's not do that. Let me just look at some of these other comments. So verse 1, after the death of Aaron's 2 sons, and we're going to stop in about 20 minutes, by the way, as Rashi, Abraham ibn Ezra, one of my least favorite commentators, followed by one of my favorite commentators, and many traditional and modern commentaries variously observe the death of Aaron's sons when they presumptuously entered sacred space is mentioned to alert Aaron to the mortal danger he and his successors run in entering the Holy of Holies on the Day of Atonement. Right. Okay. The sacred zone, and that's referring to verse 2. And that's this word here, HaKodesh, the sanctuary, but sacred zone is a nice translation. Okay. In the present context, the meaning of HaKodesh, the holy, is clearly the Holy of Holies, right? I pointed this out, actually, that even though it just means the holy, the context is that inner sanctum, the Holy of Holies, where the Ark of the Covenant is, where the Ark of the Covenant stands. Only on this most sacred day of the calendar is the high priest granted access to this dangerous space, and only when he follows a strict regimen of dress and action. Okay, the cover. This is speaking about the cover of the Ark. There's our Ark cover. There we go. That's the cover of the Ark right there. And Robert Alter says the exact nature of this item is not entirely certain, though it appears to have been some sort of carved lid to the Ark. Whatever the actual etymology of the Hebrew word kaporet, and the reason he brings this up is because many people will translate this as, you'll often see the translation the mercy seat. This is a horrible translation. It just means cover. It comes from the word kafar. We already see this in Genesis chapter 6, if I'm not mistaken. That same word is used when Noah covers up the ark with kofer, with covering, really, but they usually translate as pitch or bitumen. It doesn't mean the mercy seat. If you ever see the translation for kaporet, the mercy seat, it's just a bad translation. This chapter surely exploits a punning connection with kippur, atonement, or purgation. Okay, so he says it has a double meaning. Possibly. I'm not so sure about that. Maybe. I don't think so. Okay, verse 6, atone. Let's go here. So this is when Aaron brings that first sin offering, okay, the baby calf, that he's going to gain atonement for himself and for his household. So the verb kiper, as Jacob Milgram explains, I think he's already gone, was perhaps the leading expert on the book of Leviticus, seems to derive from a concrete notion of rubbing clean. In the cultic lexicon, I disagree with that, but I'm not going to get into it right now. It has the more abstract, indeed theological sense of affecting atonement or expiation. When it is applied to persons, it is followed by either the preposition ba'ad or al. When it is applied to things, it is followed by the noun as a direct object, which has led some interpreters to render it as purged in such a case. Okay, this is too technical for us to worry about here. And that brings us down to verse 9, where we are right now. So verse 9. ויקריב אהרון את השעיר אשר עלה עליו הגורל ליהוה ועשהו חטאת. So remember there were two baby goats. This is now not for Aaron and his household. This is for all of the congregation of Israel, the community of Israel. And so he takes, and remember there was a lot drawn, one for Yahweh, which doesn't mean that he sits on the throne. It means he's killed as a sacrifice. So although it sounds great, if you're that goat, it probably ain't too great. But so that the one that had the lot drawn for it as being for Yahweh, then it's sacrificed. It's sacrificed as a chatat, as a sin offering. Verse 10, وَالسَّعِيرْ أَشَرْ عَلَى عَلَى وَغَرَّ لِعَزَازَل, and the goat which drew the lot that he should be sent to Azazel. يَعَمُدْ خَيْ لِفْنَي Yahweh, it stands alive. Okay, so one is sacrificed as a sin offering. The other stands alive, lifnei Yahweh. Again, this lifnei Yahweh just means in the courtyard of the tabernacle or temple. Lechaper alau, lishloch oto la'azazel hamidbara. So he stands alive to atone for him. It literally says, what does it mean to atone for him? Well, we saw that this goat is meant to atone for all of the children of Israel, the entire congregation of Israel. So this is kind of strange. I have a feeling Robert Alter will pick up on that and give his explanation of why it says allow. And then Azazel Hamidbara, and then he is sent out to Azazel, whatever that means, into the wilderness, into the desert. Let's get a translation. This translation, for which the lot for the Lord comes up, this translation renders the Hebrew verb literally. The use of that verb may be dictated by the fact that the lots were in all likelihood pulled up out of a box or urn. Okay. So, and then to send it off to Azazel in the wilderness, approximate analogs to the so-called scapegoat ritual, using different animals, appear in several different Mesopotamian texts. The origins of the practice are surely in an archaic idea that the polluting substance generated by the transgressions of the people is physically carried away by the goat. So I agree with that. There's symbolically, the goat that is sent out to Azazel, to the wilderness, is carrying away the sins of the people, but specifically the sins related to any misdoings regarding the systematic quote unquote cultic worship of Yahweh, whether it means that the sacrifices were not carried out according to the rules, or that people came into contact with the holy area while in a state of uncleanliness, and so on. Azazel is not represented as a competing deity or demon rivaling Yahweh, but the ritual depends on a polarity between Yahweh, the pale of human civilization, and Azazel, the remote wilderness, the realm of disorder and raw formlessness. Okay, he's getting a little bit poetic and philosophical now. An unapologetic reading might make out the trace of a mythological plot, even if it is no more than vestigial in this monotheistic context. So I disagree with that. It is as though the goat piled with impurities were being sent back to the primordial realm of water and waste, of welter and waste, tohu vavohu, before the delineated world came into being. He's getting too philosophical, blah, blah, blah. The early rabbis, extending the momentum of the ritual, imagined the goat as being pushed off a high cliff. So that's where we get this. I guess it was the early rabbis that thought of it as a high cliff. But in our text, it is merely sent out or set free in the wild wilderness that is the realm of Azazel, whatever Azazel means. Okay, so that's it. That's the scapegoat. I'm thinking maybe we should stop here, or maybe we should do one more paragraph. Let's see. It's kind of a long chapter. So let's do one more paragraph and then we'll stop. So remember, there are two sin offerings. There's one for the priest. That is a baby calf. And then there's one for the people. That is the other goat. Verse 11. Let me just stop and see if there are any questions or comments so far. Verse 11, we kriv Aaron et parachatat asher lo. So Aaron then offers, brings forth, or sacrifices, not sacrifices, bad word. He offers the parachatat. He offers that baby calf that is meant to be a sin offering, asher lo, which is for him and his house, in order to gain atonement for himself and for his household. And so he slaughters that baby calf that is for himself and his household. Verse 12. And then he takes a censer, censer, like a pan, of burning coals off of the altar. Off of what altar? The altar of sacrifice. Okay, off of this altar. Remember, the fire is always going on this altar. It's changed every day. In the morning, the olah, the burnt offering, fully burnt offering from the day before, the ash is taken out, and a new burnt offering is brought. But always something is burning. It's the eternal flame, not the ner tamid, but it's the eternal, the moked tamid. It's eternally burning always. So he takes a handful of coals from off of the altar of sacrifice, from before Yahweh, and that just means, again, that's just saying in the tabernacle courtyard. And then he takes a handful, or maybe a double handful, because it's now. It's going to be a double handful, right? 2 handfuls, a huge 2 handfuls of Ketoret Samim, of the holy incense. Okay, the only incense that is allowed to be used. We read about it in Exodus, the specific formula, which includes cinnamon and myrrh and frankincense and a couple of other spices, which we'd have to go back and look at. But he takes a double handful of this incense offering, daka, finely ground, and now he's going to bring it inside the curtain that separates the holy area from the holy of holy areas. So now he's going to go into the holy of holies. Okay, so first he sacrifices a sin offering for himself and his family, and then he goes into the holy of holies, this area here, which, remember, it said earlier, he's not allowed to go into this area. If he goes into this area and looks directly at the ark cover, between the area of the cherubim, on the ark cover, that's where the Kavod Yahweh, that's where the glory of Yahweh lives, and he will die. So what does he do? To make a long story short, he's now going to burn incense. He's taking coals off of the the altar of sacrifice, this sucker over here, and then he's taking incense. He's taking those coals and he's putting it on a censer, censer. Let's get an image for censer. I'm gonna get one of these medieval church images, but it doesn't matter. You get the idea. Okay, these suckers, right? It might have just been like a flat pan. At any rate, you get the idea. An incense, portable incense burner. He's going to take the coals, put it in there. Then he's going to take 2 handfuls of the incense, put it on top of the coals, and now the incense is going to burn on top of the coals. It's going to make a beautiful scent, and it's also going to make a cloud. It's going to make smoke. So then when he goes into this area of the Holy of Holies, when he goes into the area where the Ark of the Covenant is and looks in the direction of the Ark cover, then he will not be able to see the Ark cover directly, because the smoke or the cloud from the burning of the incense will shroud the Ark cover in that smoke, in that cloud. Okay? That's the idea. Verse 13. Unatan et aktoret al ha'esh lifnei Yahweh, and he's going to place that or he will have placed, I guess is the implication here, the incense on the fires, on those coals that he got, lifnei Yahweh. I guess he does it lifnei Yahweh while he's still out in the courtyard. We saw anan aktoret et akaporet, and so the the cloud that comes from the burning incense is going to cover Kisa et kaporet. It's going to cover the ark cover, asher al idut, which is on the ark of the covenant. Lo yamut, and he will not die. Rakach midam apar, and then he's going to take blood. He's going to gather the blood from this baby calf that he slaughtered as a sin offering. And he's going to sprinkle, using his fingers, he's going to sprinkle it either onto the ark cover, or in the direction of the ark cover, in front of the ark cover, kedma, eastwards. So let's look again at our. We're frozen. Here we go. I have to restart the computer. I gotta restart. We're frozen. Okay, we're back. So let's just do a sound check and make sure I'm sharing the screen correctly. We had our usual freeze. Okay, can you guys hear me okay? Testing 1, 2, 3. Somebody give me an okay. I'm going to assume everyone can hear me. I think so. This is back. Okay, I think we're good. Loud and clear. Good. Okay, we had our usual once a study freeze, which I still can't figure out why, but it happens. Okay, so where were we? So so basically he's walking into the we said in the direction of he's going to sprinkle the blood either onto the ark cover or in the direction of the ark cover, eastwards, lifnei kaporet. I guess here this implies lifnei kaporet. Well, it could imply either that he's standing in front of the kaporet and then sprinkles onto the kaporet or the ark cover, or he's just standing there and sprinkling it in the direction before the ark cover. Yazez sheva pamim, he's going to do it 7 times. This is not the first time we've seen this 7-time thing, right? We remember that with the sin offering, remember there were 4 modes for the sin offering. One was for the Kohen Gadol, the other was for all of the people, the third was for a leader, and the fourth was for an individual layperson. And in the first 2 types, remember that Aaron, if I remember correctly, was there. It was a bull. I might be wrong. I'd have to go back and look. Or maybe it was a bull for the first type and a sheep for the second type. We'd have to go back and look. But at any rate, Aaron on those first 2 more serious modes, because the first is the Kohen Gadol, which affects the entire nation, and the second is the entire nation, right? The entire people inadvertently sinned. The blood of that sacrifice is collected in a bowl, and then Aaron walks inside the not the holy of holy areas, but the outer sanctum of the tent of meeting, the holy area, and then sprinkles 7 times on the blood either on that curtain, the curtain that separates the holy area from the holy of holy areas. In other words, this curtain right here, that's the parochet, either on it or in front of it. Okay, so we've seen this before, this sprinkling of the blood of the sacrifice 7 times in the holy area. And we see it again here. So min adam be'etzba'o. So he's going to take that sin offering, which was for himself. He's going to gather the blood. He's going to bring it into the holy of holy areas. He's going to come in also with incense burning, so that a cloud develops which shrouds the kaporet, the covering of the ark covering, sometimes poorly translated as the mercy seat, although Robert Alter seems to say that it has a double meaning. I don't agree with that, actually. But it could, I suppose. It's not outside of the realm of possibility, but I've never liked that explanation. And then he walks into that holy of holy areas, sprinkles the blood that he's gathered from the sacrifice, which is the baby calf, 7 times eastward in the direction of the holy of holy, in the direction of the ark cover. Okay. And again, let's just get a map here. Okay, so why eastward? Wait a second. Right, so it doesn't mean eastward because that wouldn't make sense. Kedma. I don't know, that's a weird one. But he's in the direction west, but I guess it means the east side of the parochet, of the curtain. Okay. I wonder how Robert Alter translates that one. Probably the same way, I'm guessing. Oops, I have to go back to the page. 1 second here. It's really sprinkling in the direction of westward, because when you walk into the tent of meeting towards the Holy of Holies, you're walking west. You're walking away from the rising sun, because the pagans worship the rising sun. This goes back to what we spoke about earlier with David Polina, which is one of the reasons that he believes, if I'm not mistaken, that Yom has to do with the rising sun, because the pagans worship the rising sun. So as a polemic, this was pointed out to me many years ago in 2019 when I visited with Johnny, my quote unquote adopted son, who why is this not? We visited the replica of the tabernacle in Timnah, which is just about 45 minutes north of Eilat in southern Israel. And the guide, who's excellent, pointed out that when you walk into the tent of meeting, you're walking from east to west, you're walking away from the rising sun, you're walking in the direction of the setting sun, and that this was very possibly polemic by Yahweh, by the ancient Israelites, against the pagans, the surrounding pagans who worship the sun, specifically the rising sun. Why do you worship the rising sun rather than the setting sun? Because when the sun rises, it's growing, it's getting stronger. You don't worship the setting sun because it's getting weaker. Okay, but the Holy of Holies, when you walk into the Holy of Holies, or when you walk into the tent of meeting, from the entrance here towards the Holy of Holies, you're walking away from the rising sun, you're walking towards the setting sun, because we as Israelites do not worship pagan gods like the rising sun, house of the rising sun, right? We don't worship that. We worship the ineffable, is that the right word? I believe so. The God that has the Elohim that has no physical existence on this, no physical form, doesn't take up space and time. He's outside of space and time. So we don't worship a rising sun. So we walk away. When we walk towards our God, we walk away from the pagan rising sun. Okay. So radio. What did I want to do? I want to see how he translates that. What do I want to see how he translates? 1 second. Sprinkles sometimes with blood with his finger. Yeah, he also says, okay, on the east side. Kidma. Yeah, okay, that makes sense. On the east side. Okay. I take it back. It does make perfect sense. Okay. And then we get into the sin offering for the people, but I think we're going to pick this up next time. Wow, this is such interesting stuff. I mean, I hope you guys find this fascinating. I really, really find this fascinating. I've, over the years, come so much to appreciate these portions of the Torah, which people just tend to ignore because they find it too boring, too dry, too technical. I just find this stuff absolutely fascinating, how the whole system fits together, and it really does make sense why we now understand, because we studied the different types of sacrifices, why we understand why there's a sin offering being brought here, right? We know what the sin offering is about. If you've somehow violated the ritualistic, the cultic worship of Yahweh in one way or another, that's a sin offering. Okay, I've inadvertently messed up in all the rules of worshiping Yahweh, of bringing sacrifices to Yahweh, of staying in a state of cleanliness, and now I bring a sin offering. That's what that has to do with, right? It just gives it so much context when we understand the 5 basic types of sacrifices, when we understand the system of ritual cleanliness and ritual uncleanliness, how to enter it, how to get out of it, when we understand what it means in regards to the tabernacle, that you're not allowed to come in contact with the tabernacle when you're in a state of uncleanliness, when we understand what happened to the first and second born sons of Aaron, Nadav and Avihu, when they violated the very specific set of rules, the very specific system set up for the ritualistic cultic worship of Yahweh by bringing incense when they weren't supposed to bring incense, and some say using a foreign fire, meaning they didn't use fire off of the altar of sacrifice, they used fire from a different place, right? It just all makes so much sense. It's just a beautiful system. We may never, ever have to encounter it again, because it's not clear whether these meat sacrifices will ever be brought back in the future. And my opinion is they will not, but the brilliance, the wisdom, the way it all just makes sense and just fits together into one big whole is something that it's honestly such a shame that people consider it, as I always like to call it, Torah flyover country. I find it just absolutely fascinating, in a certain sense, more fascinating than the narrative parts of the Torah. I mean, it's all fascinating, obviously, but these quote unquote technical parts of the Torah are you have to work harder to really get to the meaning of them, right? To understand how the whole system works together. And once you do, it's like climbing a mountain, right? You really appreciate the view. You really appreciate the understanding that you gain by studying the system. I just find it fascinating. So on that note, we're going to end here, I think. Next time we'll start talking about that other sacrifice, that second goat, not the one that was sent out to Azazel, although it's also going to speak about that if I remember correctly, right? But that second goat, yeah, speak about it down here. That second goat that is meant to be a sin offering, a chatat, a recompense for inadvertent transgression offering for all of the people of Israel, as opposed to this sin offering of the baby calf that is for getting atonement for Aaron and his household, meaning either all of the Kohanim or meaning just his immediate house. I think it really means all of the Kohanim. Okay, so with that being said, I think we're going to end here. I'll ask if there are any questions and any comments before we end the study. I think it was a fascinating study. I hope so. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Any questions or any comments? If not, then we'll call it a day, and we will, be'ezrat Yahweh, pick it up next week. So thank you for joining me. I'll try to solve this Twitter problem by next week. I don't know why I do know why it's not connecting to Twitter. Let's see. It's going to tell me right. I'll worry about that next week. But I thank you for joining us here. I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom and a Shavua Tov. Love you too, Marianne. And we'll speak later, wherever you are in the world. And I just hope and pray that Am Yisrael, that the people of Israel can start, getting along better with each other and start getting along better with Yahweh, the Elohim, the God of Israel. Because if we don't, we are in deep, 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 deep trouble, as we were on October 7th. So thank you. Please spread the word about the study. Do like, subscribe, all that nice, social media-y stuff. And I just hope you guys have a great Shabbat and a great, happy, successful, spiritually successful, physically week. And see you guys all be'ezrat Yahweh next week. We'll go out with some music as usual. And see you again soon.
אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי? עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ. אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל. השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה. השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, מאין יבוא עזרי? עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ. אל ייתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך. הנה לא ינום ולא ישן שומר ישראל. השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השמש לא יככה, וירח בלילה. השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך. השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. השם שומרך, השם צילך, על יד ימינך. יומם השם השם ישמורך מכל רע, ישמור את נפשך, השם ישמור צאתך ובואך, מעתה ועד עולם. אוי 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 שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, אוי מאין יבוא עזרי, עזרי מעם השם, עושה שמיים וארץ, אני אתן למות רגליך, אל ינום שומרך. אוי 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 שיר למעלות, אשא עיניי אל ההרים, אוי מאין יבוא עזרי. Thank you.